There's a very specific feeling you get when you hire a really competent assistant, or maybe you bring a new automated tool into your workflow for the first time.
Oh, yeah, the honeymoon phase.
Exactly. It's the honeymoon phase of delegation. You hand over this massive, complex project, you step back, and then a few hours later, they come back with this beautifully formatted spreadsheet
Right.
or a really polished summary. And the immediate sensation is just pure relief.
It is, because you've successfully offloaded all that mental burden.
Yeah.
And because the final product looks professional, you just naturally assume the underlying work is flawless. You trust that the system did it right.
Right, right. And that illusion holds up perfectly right until the moment it suddenly shatters.
Usually in a very public way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you're looking at that perfect spreadsheet in a high-stakes meeting, and you suddenly realize a couple of the critical revenue numbers, they just don't align with last quarter's baseline.
Yeah, the formatting is still beautiful, but the data is completely detached from reality.
Exactly. The trust just evaporates in an instant.
Hmm.
And you're left scrambling, asking your tool, your assistant, where did you actually get this number? Like, did you pull this from the final Q3 report, or did you just scrape a draft file from someone's desktop?
That moment of panic right there, that is what we call the witness gap.
The witness gap.
Yeah, and understanding how to close that gap is essentially the central challenge of operating in a world where digital agents are doing more and more of our heavy lifting.
And that witness gap is the exact focus of our deep dive today. So to get us started, the title of today's deep dive is, specifically, The Witness Gap Reliable Agents Need Receipts, Not Just Autonomy.
That's a great title.
It really is. And to tear this concept apart today, we're looking at a highly structured set of sources gathered over a very strict evidence window, specifically a 168-hour window.
Right.
And that is from August 11th, 2026 at 16.59.3886 000 through August 18, 2026 at that same exact time, 16.59.380000.
Which is important because if an event timestamp falls outside of that boundary, it doesn't exist for the purposes of our analysis today. We are strictly looking at those 7 days.
Right. And setting that strict chronological boundary, that's fundamental to the entire concept of what we're calling a receipt, right?
It really is. I mean, think back to our previous step dive. We spent a lot of time exploring what we called the freshness tax.
Right, the freshness tax.
Yeah, this operational reality that information just rots over time.
Yeah, decays.
Exactly. And keeping your view of the world accurate requires this constant, ongoing expenditure of energy to verify it. You have to pay the tax to ensure you aren't making tomorrow's decisions based on yesterday's reality.
But the freshness tax only covers the first half of the equation.
Right.
Right? Because paying the tax just means you went out and got new data.
Right.
The witness gap is about how you actually prove you got it.
Yes.
Because we are handing over the keys to these autonomous agents now. They're scouring databases, reading key repositories, summarizing the whole internet for us.
Moving at light speed.
Yeah.
Exactly. But autonomy without verifiable proof is just a huge liability. If an agent returns from the digital wilderness with this bold claim but cannot show its work, it hasn't actually solved your problem.
No, it's just giving you a completely new problem to investigate.
Exactly.
To put it in everyday terms, think about how corporate expense reports function.
Oh, this is a great analogy.
Right. Because if a colleague comes back from a business trip and casually mentions to you, hey, I spent $500 on a client dinner,
Yeah.
that statement is not a fact.
Yeah.
Operationally, it is just a claim.
Right. Or a lead.
Or a lead, exactly.
Sure.
If you take that claim to the accounting department and ask them to reimburse the $500 based purely on your colleague's confidence, what happens?
They laugh you out of the room. I mean, accounting does not care about your colleague's confidence.
Precisely. Accounting requires durable proof. They need that crumpled, itemized piece of thermal paper.
They need to see the merchant ID of the restaurant, the exact timestamp of the transaction, the specific items ordered, the tax calculated at the bottom.
Yeah.
That thermal paper is a durable receipt.
Yeah.
And in this rapidly accelerating era of artificial intelligence and digital autonomy, we have to treat our agents like that colleague.
Right. We can't just take their word for it.
No, they can't just give us claims. They must file their expense reports.
I love that. They have to file the report. And
Yeah.
that brings us to the actual operational boundary of what constitutes a verifiable fact in this framework.
Right.
So based on the sources we're analyzing today, an agent's capability is really only trustworthy when 3 core things are met.
Right.
So that's freshness, provenance, and the system's recovery state.
Hmm.
And all three of those have to be backed up by these durable receipts.
Yeah, the thesis is very clear on this. For a piece of data to cross the threshold from just being a lead to becoming an actual fact, it requires 4 distinct elements.
Okay, let's break those down.
Sure. So first, you need current source identity. You need to know exactly who or what system is originating this claim right in this moment.
Yeah.
Second, reproducible evidence. So if I take the exact same path the agent took, will I observe the exact same data?
Right. Can I replicate it?
Exactly. Third is explicit remediation state. So if we are talking about a software vulnerability or a system error, what is the verifiable current status of the fix?
Okay.
And finally, recovery receipts. This is the proof of how the automated system handled gaps or timeouts or failures while it was looking for the information.
So if it's missing any of those,
If a claim is missing its exact source, its timestamp, or its completion state, it remains a lead. It is not a fact.
okay, but let me push back on this for a second.
Go for it.
Because if I force my AI agent to generate a cryptographic hash, a source URL, and a verified timestamp for every single solitary data point it pulls, a 10-second summary is suddenly going to take, what, 5 minutes to generate? Aren't we intentionally destroying the core value proposition of AI here? Like, we built these agents for velocity. By demanding they show their math for every microscopic step, it kind of feels like we're bottlenecking their autonomy.
It does feel that way.
We're treating a supercomputer like it's a slow-moving bureaucracy.
That is the exact tension every organization is wrestling with right now.
Mm-hmm.
There is this massive temptation to optimize for velocity over veracity.
Right. Everyone wants it faster.
But speed without reliability isn't an asset. It is a compounding threat.
Compounding. How so?
Well, consider a scenario where an autonomous agent is managing automated stock trades, right? Or perhaps it's reallocating server resources across a global network.
Okay, high-stakes stuff.
Very high stakes. If it moves at lightning speed based on a false premise, say, it hallucinates a metric from a company's financial document because it didn't bother to verify the source, it creates an avalanche of errors.
Because it's not just making one mistake, it's making 1,000 downstream micro decisions based on that one initial hallucination.
Exactly. Before you've even realized there's a problem, the agent has corrupted a database, it's sent erroneous alerts to stakeholders, or it's executed trades that cost millions.
Wow.
The damage scales at the speed of the agent's autonomy. So witnessability, this strict demand for receipts, that is the friction required to prevent the avalanche.
It forces the system to anchor its velocity to reality.
Beautifully put.
Okay, that grounds the concept perfectly. Velocity without friction just leads to a crash. So let's take this theoretical framework and apply it to the actual evidence our sources capture during that strict 168-hour window.
Let's do it.
Let's look at the absolute strongest piece of evidence we have. We're talking about a case study involving updates to a hardware wallet ecosystem called Coldcard.
Right. And when we filter all the system activity through our witnessability requirements for that exact week.
The August 11th through 18th window.
Yes. There is only one validated piece of first-party evidence in that entire 7-day window.
Just one.
Just one. It is a local audit receipt generated on August 18th, specifically a markdown file named Critic Review 2026 18.and18.md.
Okay, so this specific markdown file, this is our thermal paper for the expense report.
Exactly.
So what does it actually prove?
The receipt confirms that a local repository, which means code downloaded and stored on a specific local machine, contains 4 cited commits.
Okay.
It also documents associated changelog and version records, specifically capturing the wording for MK4 MK5 5.6.1 and Q1 1.5.1Q.
Okay, on the surface, that sounds incredibly definitive.
Right.
Like we have a local file that confirms the presence of specific code updates and version numbers.
It sounds great.
But this is where we have to apply what the framework calls the thin source caveat. We have to be brutally honest about what this receipt does not prove.
The limitations of this receipt are arguably way more important than the contents.
Yeah.
Because it is strictly a local repository record, we have to exclude a massive amount of assumed progress.
What do you mean by assumed progress?
Well, this receipt does not independently prove that these code commits were ever merged into the main public GitHub pull request.
Oh.
It does not prove release provenance. And most importantly, it does not verify that any shipped compiled binaries were actually sent to end users. Plus, it has 0 proof regarding attacker identity, victim counts, losses, or causation.
Okay, it's like being a restaurant inspector.
Right.
If I walk into the back office of a restaurant and find the chef's private notebook, and in that notebook is a recipe for a brand new cake, I have a durable receipt proving the recipe exists.
Yes.
But that notebook tells me absolutely nothing about reality outside that office.
Yeah.
I don't have proof the chef ever actually baked the cake.
Exactly.
I don't have proof it was added to the menu, and I certainly don't have proof that a customer ordered it, ate it, and enjoyed it. So we have the local commits, the recipe. We do not have proof the cake ever shipped to the customers.
The recipe is not the cake, and the local commit is not the shipped patch. This leads to a hard, unbreakable rule in evaluating agent intelligence, especially in software security. Open issues or pull requests must never be treated as shipped fixes.
I feel like people mix that up all the time.
Constantly. A pull request is just a proposal to change code. An open issue is merely a formalized complaint or a recognized flaw. They represent remediation work or verification work. They do not represent a resolved state for the user.
This really highlights how dangerous the vocabulary of progress can be, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because we get these automated alerts saying issue logged or patch proposed, and our brains just interpret that as problem solved.
Right. We get lulled into this illusion of resolution.
Yeah. But if I'm an end user, an open issue means I am still actively exposed to whatever vulnerability exists. Until I have a receipt proving the final compiled binary is running on my machine, the threat remains active.
And this is exactly why agents need to be programmed to understand state. If an agent scans a repository, sees a proposed patch, and reports to you, hey, the vulnerability is fixed,
It's lying to you.
it has failed the witnessability test. It has conflated a lead with a fact.
Okay, so we've established that a local receipt doesn't prove a global fix.
Yeah.
But that assumes the agent is actually looking at highly structured data, like code repositories.
Right.
What happens when the agent is just out there scraping the open internet? Because our sources for this specific window highlight a major challenge with what we call collector noise.
Yes, collector noise is a huge issue.
During the August 11th to 18th window, we saw system outputs from platforms like Social Scout, Twitter, Hacker News, and Moltbook.
And here is the crucial distinction. These platforms operate as signal collectors. They are designed to sweep up chatter, debate, and raw commentary.
Right.
From a strict evidentiary standpoint, anything gathered from these social lanes is completely excluded as primary evidence.
Let's linger on that for a second, because that is a massive shift in how people use AI today. People use agents to summarize Hacker News threads or Twitter debates all the time.
All the time.
But you're saying those summaries, no matter how accurate the AI is at reading the text, cannot be treated as factual receipts.
An AI summary of a Hacker News thread is essentially a highly organized rumor map.
A rumor map. I like that.
Yeah, it's incredibly useful for pointing you toward a potential fire, but it is not a thermometer. It cannot prove the temperature of the fire, or even if the fire actually exists outside the minds of the commenters.
Right.
If an agent aggregates 50 tweets claiming a server is down, the agent hasn't proven the server is down. It has only proven that 50 people are talking about it.
It flattens reality.
Completely.
The agent strips away all the context of the social internet, the speculation, the bias, the echo chamber, and it presents the aggregate chatter as a clinical finding.
Yes. And if a user doesn't demand a receipt linking back to a primary source, they end up making decisions based on crowdsourced hallucinations.
Which is why the distinction between a primary record and a collector summary must be ruthlessly maintained. Agents need to communicate the varying weight of the evidence they bring back.
Exactly. They have to say, this is chatter, not fact.
But what happens when the agent goes out to listen for those rumors or check those primary sources and it hears absolutely nothing?
Failure recovery.
Yes, failure recovery. Because in our 168-hour window, there are two specific instances of systems returning empty hands.
Right.
On August 11th, a system called Cluster ran a scan, and the record shows it was completely silent. Then later, on August 18th, a triage output simply reported, quote, latest ideas, none.
So human psychology works against us here.
How so?
When a security system or an automated scanner returns a blank report, our default instinct is celebration.
Right. No news is good news.
Exactly. We assume no news is good news. We view the empty report as a green light to move forward.
It's a very natural assumption. If I look out my window and don't see any rain, I assume I don't need an umbrella.
But if your blinds are closed, you aren't seeing a lack of rain. You are just failing to observe the weather.
Oh, that's a good point.
In the realm of automated systems, missing intake cannot be treated as a green release gate. It must be treated as a stage failure until proven otherwise.
Let's use a physical analogy here. Imagine an automated factory floor. You're sitting in the manager's office, watching a dashboard that tracks boxes coming off the final conveyor belt.
Okay.
Suddenly, the dashboard shows 0 boxes being produced. You don't assume that you've perfectly fulfilled every order and the day's work is just magically done.
No, you definitely don't.
You immediately assume the power got cut to the factory floor or the belt jammed. You investigate the failure of the system, not the success of the quota.
That is a perfect translation of the concept. If your automated agent reports latest ideas, none. You cannot assume the digital landscape is perfectly secure.
Right.
You must first verify that the agent successfully connected to the network, that it actually had the correct permissions to access the databases, and that it actively queried the right fields.
You have to prove the conveyor belt was actually running.
Exactly. A lack of evidence is not evidence of security.
Which means we have to acknowledge explicit coverage gaps.
Yes, we do.
In our specific source window, it's documented that the Bitcoin and Nostra lanes, along with the broader social lanes, have absolutely no established in-window primary record.
None.
There's no durable receipt for those areas during these 7 days. They are thin coverage gaps. We can't confidently state that nothing happened in those ecosystems. We can only admit that we have no proof of anything happening.
And a truly reliable agent doesn't try to smooth over its blind spots to present a polished report to you.
Right, it shouldn't hide the gaps.
It highlights those gaps. It says, I have high confidence receipts for these 3 databases, but I timed out when trying to access the 4th. You are currently blind to that sector.
Yeah.
That level of transparency is what actually builds trust.
This framework completely changes how we should evaluate automated tools. I mean, it really does.
It's a paradigm shift.
But I want to make this highly actionable for the person listening right now. They might not be auditing code commits for hardware wallets, but they are absolutely using AI to summarize massive PDF reports for their morning meetings. Or they're relying on automated dashboards to track their team's metrics.
Oh, for sure.
How do they apply this strict standard of witnessability to their daily workflow?
Well, the sources outline a very practical witnessability checklist.
Okay, let's hear it.
It is a series of 7 requirements that you should mentally run through whenever an automated tool or even a human colleague honestly presents you with a confident claim.
I am fully ready for this. Let's break down the checklist. Number 1 is URL or ID.
This is the most foundational layer. Where exactly did this information originate? An agent just saying, I found it in a company document is useless.
Right. Which document?
Exactly. You need the exact canonical location. What is the specific document ID? What is the distinct URL? If the agent cannot provide the precise coordinates of the source, you are dealing with a lead, not a fact.
It's the difference between someone saying, I heard from a guy in accounting that revenue is up, versus here is the signed affidavit from the CFO. You need the coordinates.
Right.
Okay, number 2 on the checklist, event timestamp. And based on our discussion of the 168-hour window, this is much more nuanced than just, checking the clock.
This is where so many automated workflows fail. There is a critical difference between the time a file was harvested and the time the event inside the file actually occurred.
Right.
If your agent downloads a server log today, the file creation time on your local machine is today.
Yeah, obviously.
But that log might describe a system crash that happened 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I see.
The event timestamp is the moment the original action took place in reality. When was the code committed? When was the financial statement finalized? You must demand the time of the event, not the time of the harvest.
That distinction is massive. Because if you're trying to reconstruct a timeline to figure out why a project failed, and your agent is giving you timestamps based on when it read the files rather than when the decisions were actually made,
your entire causal chain is going to be reversed.
it's chronological chaos.
Total chaos.
Wow. Okay, moving to number 3, source role.
This connects directly back to our discussion about the chef's notebook versus the baked cake.
The recipe versus the reality.
Exactly. You have to categorize the operational role of the source before you assign it any weight. Is this a first-party shipped record? Meaning, is it a finalized product, an official corporate filing, or a deployed patch?
Right.
Or is it merely an open issue, a draft proposal, a marketing claim, or just a summary of social media chatter? An agent must label the role of the source because a draft proposal cannot be used as proof of a finalized decision.
That makes total sense. Okay, number 4 introduces a more technical concept, artifact hash.
Yes.
But Honestly, I think this might be one of the most important tools for protecting yourself against bad data.
It sounds like deep cryptographic jargon, I know, but practically, an artifact hash is just a digital tamper-proof seal.
Tamper-proof seal.
It is a unique mathematical fingerprint of a specific file at a specific moment in time.
So let's say I use an AI agent to summarize a massive Q3 earnings report on a Monday morning.
Okay.
The agent gives me a summary that says we missed our targets by 10%. I take that summary to the board.
Yikes, bad news.
Right, bad news. But then on Tuesday, someone quietly uploads a revised version of that PDF to the server that massages the numbers to look a little better. If I don't have the artifact hash of the original file the agent read, it looks like my AI just hallucinated the bad news.
Yeah.
I look totally incompetent.
Exactly. The hash protects you from reality shifting under your feet.
Wow.
If the agent provides the hash of the document it summarized, you can mathematically prove that the 10% figure was actually present in the specific version of the file it read on Monday.
So it proves what the document looked like when the AI read it.
Yes. It prevents gaslighting, whether that's from human manipulation or just automated system overwrites.
That is an incredibly powerful defense mechanism.
It really is.
All right, number 5 on the checklist is the stage receipt.
We covered this a bit with the factory conveyor belt analogy. A stage receipt is the proof that the system successfully completed its gathering phase.
Right, checking if the belt was actually running.
Yes. It is the log file that says, I successfully authenticated into the database, I queried all these specific tables, and here are the exact results.
And if the results are empty?
Crucially, if the results are empty, the stage receipt proves the system didn't just fail silently or lose power. It proves the system actively observed an empty room, rather than just closing its eyes.
Right. That distinction between observing nothing and failing to observe is so important.
Exactly.
Okay, number 6 is QC, or quality control. This seems like it should be totally obvious, but I imagine it gets skipped constantly in the rush for speed.
Oh, it gets skipped all the time because people assume the AI's initial extraction is flawless.
Right, they trust the honeymoon phase.
Exactly. QC means having defined technical and editorial checks before a claim is ever presented to the human user. Like, did the agent just scrape raw text and dump it into a spreadsheet? Or did it run a secondary validation check to ensure the formatting didn't mangle the numerical value?
Well, I've seen that happen.
Right. Has the data been audited against the specific rules and constraints you set for the task?
It's forcing the agent to double-check its own work before it taps you on the shoulder.
Precisely.
Okay, and finally, number 7, approval boundary.
This is the strict temporal cutoff point for the data. In our deep dive today, our approval boundary was violently strict.
Yeah, August 18th, 2026, at precisely 16.59.380606.0.
Right. Any event that happened 1 second after that timestamp is entirely invisible to our analysis.
It doesn't exist for us.
Exactly. When an agent hands you a summary, you need to know exactly when it stopped looking.
Because if the agent stopped looking at the market data yesterday at noon and a major sector crashed yesterday at 1 p.m.,
your summary isn't just slightly outdated.
it is dangerously obsolete.
Yes. If you don't know the approval boundary, you don't know where your blind spots begin.
Wow. When you combine all 7 of these checks URL, event timestamp, source role, artifact hash, stage receipt, QC, and approval boundary, you transform a fragile, high-speed automated process into a durable, auditable workflow.
It takes you from being a passive consumer of AI summaries to being an active auditor of reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
You aren't just reading the final number, you are verifying the supply chain of that number.
And bringing this all back to where we started, this is exactly how we connect the freshness tax to the witness gap.
Right, because getting fresh data is a requirement, but fresh data is totally meaningless if you can't prove its provenance.
Exactly. The autonomy we are building into these systems is incredible. I mean, it is the engine that will drive the next decade of productivity.
Oh, for sure.
But an engine without a steering wheel just gets you into a high-speed crash. The receipts, the witnessability, that is the steering wheel.
That is the steering wheel. I love that. Before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over, one that really builds on this shifting dynamic between humans and digital agents.
It's a big shift. If we extrapolate these trends, we're moving into a world where agents operate with near total autonomy, just seamlessly integrated into our daily workflows.
Yeah.
In that world, the most valuable human skill will no longer be the ability to find information.
Because the AI will always be faster at that.
The AI will always be faster at retrieving and synthesizing data. The premium human skill will be the ability to audit it.
If an AI agent manages your calendar, triages your emails, or rebalances your financial portfolio and it makes a critical error, or worse, if it confidently hallucinates a completely false narrative, how will you know?
How would you?
Right. If you haven't forced your systems to leave a trail of durable receipts, you will be entirely at their mercy. So ask yourself this. In your own life, in the tools you are using today, are you accepting leads as facts simply because an automated system handed them to you with a lot of confidence?
As the witness gap threatens to grow wider, our demand for proof really must scale alongside our demand for speed.
It is a fundamental shift in how we interact with technology. Well, that brings us to the end of our time for today's exploration. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the real mechanics of information trust and automated agents. Until next time, keep demanding those receipts.